All right, everybody, welcome to Rogues Gallery Live. I'm the Batman Statue Collector, and this is episode number 10. And we have an incredible show and an incredible guest. We literally have comic book royalty on the show. I am beyond excited today. And again, I cannot believe she's here. I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but I'll introduce the Rogues Gallery here first before we do that. As always, we have the Dark Lord himself, Mr. Thor Gunderson's in the house.
It is always a pleasure, Batman Statue Collector, and as always, we are honored that we could join you.
Thank you very much. We also have, of course, the Punisher himself, Mr. Rodney is here.
What's up? Punisher here in Gotham. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Just joining us back from his phone call, we have Mr. From the Odd Couple Statue Review, we have Mr. Jason Bond.
Hey, glad to be here with Batman Royalty and the rest of you. Should be a great show this week. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We also have from Mac Collections, Mr. Mac Maines with us.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on, Chris. Hello, Athena.
Hello. We also have Lawrence Ohl with us, as always.
Hello. Thanks for having me, everyone. Nice to meet you, Athena.
Nice to meet you.
We have, of course, Mr. Jeff Morris.
Hey, guys. Welcome, everybody.
And then, of course, we have, for the very first time, Mr. Jeremy Alejandro is with us tonight.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, we have, of course, from the Child of the Atom, Mr. A. Tim is with us tonight.
Hey, everybody. Hey, panel, chat. Hi, Athena. Welcome.
And we're also going to be joined, hopefully, by Centauri Stir Fry. Will be joining us as soon as he has the chance to get in. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce, and hopefully she does not need any introduction, but because I know people are still getting to know the story. But we have the granddaughter of Bill Finger, who is the co-creator of Batman himself, or in my eyes, the creator of Batman himself. We have, of course, Athena Finger is joining us this week. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yay.
Hey,
We're so excited. We're so excited. And again, tonight we're going to have questions kind of like we did last week with our guest Susan from last week. We're all going to answer or ask the different questions. And then at the end, we'll answer questions from the live chat as well. We're going to keep this show to hopefully around an hour tonight. So it'll be a little bit fast paced. And we might even have a live unboxing tonight. So it's really exciting. I'm really excited. So we'll go ahead and get started. I have the first question, and I'll ask that to you. Most of us first became familiar with you through the Batman and Bill documentary. What were your thoughts when Mark first contacted you about the documentary and that he was doing it?
Well, I was excited about it. We actually started the documentary before I even pursued getting credit. And we just really wanted to bring awareness of Bill's story and the true history of the creator of Batman and you know, really the correct history. And so we started back in 2011. And then after we got credit, in 2015, we continued on with the rest of the documentary, and we got what we have now. I think they did a great job.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Question number 2, Jeff.
So it's Athena, as you were growing up, the idea of getting Bill credit was oftentimes pushed aside. How important was it that something would eventually happen to get him credit?
Well, I always felt that it was important. When my father passed away in '92, I was just shy of my 16th birthday, so I didn't really know what avenue to take to pursue it. And I was always, you know, said that it was going to take a lot of money to get this, you know, corrected also. So, you know, I always felt there was, you know, a high importance of getting this done. You know, I was a little frustrated when I was, you know, in my teen years and in my early 20s. I would go to a comic shop and ask people, you know, do you know who Bill Finger is? And they'd like look at me like, who the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's really sad. You work in a comic shop and you don't really know the true history. So, you know, it really, it was something that I felt that people needed to know within, you know, the comic culture.
Yeah.
And some people knew, and not many though.
It
So-
seems like it was kind of an open secret from what I got from the documentary that there was this group of people that did know and was aware, but didn't feel like they could do anything about it or didn't want to do anything about it.
Well, I mean, really, it takes a family member to be able to pursue it, and it's not that my father didn't pursue it. It's just that he was always, denied over the
Yeah.
years, and then he passed away, so he wasn't able to fight even more.
Well, it'd have
So,
to
I mean,
feel
I always felt
overwhelming
this
to go
heavy
against
burden that it
them.
fell upon me to really get my grandfather's name out there and try to get his proper title of co-creator. And, that was something that I knew that I needed to do for a long
Yeah.
time, even though I did for a long time not even think about it or talk about it because I didn't know what to do. So
It had to
when
feel
Mark
overwhelming.
when Mark approached me, he kind of pushed me to say, it's time. You need to really go ahead and start pursuing this. It's too important not to. And I agreed,
Yeah.
and I knew it was something that needed to be resolved one way or another.
Had you contacted Warner Brothers or DC prior to Mark contacting you?
Yes.
And did you get just like a blank? We appreciate what Bill did, but there's issues. I mean, did you already get that kind of that
got
brush
something
off?
similar to that. We know, but there's nothing we can really do, and basically that's about it.
I bet the words contractually obligated were thrown around, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But I mean, I can understand their position. They didn't really want to, open that can of worms. They wanted to just hide behind what they felt they had the right to hide behind. Timing played a big role in everything, and Mark had a place in that with, writing the book and contacting me and getting the documentary going and being out there telling Bill's story all the time and bringing a lot of awareness within the culture of really the true history of how Batman was created. So, that played a big role with him pursuing it, plus his other historians telling Bill's story and getting the public, to understand and recognize really what Bill did, because it wasn't something small. I mean, he really gave Batman all of the good parts. I mean,
yeah,
and to be denied that for so long was a tragedy and an injustice, and people recognize that.
When Mark first contacted you, did you have reservations? Like you didn't know if you wanted to put yourself out there? Because I mean, clearly you've had to. I mean, it's made you a public person now, or maybe you weren't as much before. Did you have reservations initially?
I did, because it was more of an emotional thing for me. It brought up a lot of pain from when my father passed away, and not having him to really be the forefront for his dad. I mean, that's really what he wanted. He wanted his dad to get the recognition and the notoriety that he deserved. So I was a little hesitant. When Mark got in touch with me, I hadn't really thought about or talked about Batman for 15 years. So I needed to be pushed. I cried a lot, and I thought about it a lot, and talked to my family about it. And Mark didn't really want me to be just thrown out into the public right away. He was very cautious about it. He knew that I was a fairly private person, and he was very respectful of that. But he knew that I needed to pursue it, and knew that there was a time and a place for me to come out into the public and tell Bill's story and how to pursue getting his credit and things like that.
That's so awesome. Well, I mean, just as a lifelong Batman fan, I'm just so happy that he came into your life and that he gave you the courage to do it, because I know it was not easy and not an easy experience to get that done. But man, I'm just so thankful as a Batman fan. So it's just so awesome, so awesome. Let's see. Question 3 is Lawrence.
Yeah. So, hi Athena. Now that now that we know that Bill, has the appropriate credit, and we've learned the true history behind the story and the accurate history behind the story of Batman's creation, we were hoping you could tell us a little bit about some of the characters that he did create for the Batman world. And we're also curious, what are maybe some characters or storylines that he potentially created outside of Batman and that world?
Okay, well, who do you like in the Batman universe?
Two-Face.
I know that a lot of us here
Sorry,
fans of the
getting a phone call.
villains. I got a Joker shirt on right now.
Okay.
Well,
there's controversy about the creation of the Joker, but Bill did write the first Joker story, and I know that Jerry Robinson likes to take credit. I know that Bob Kane likes to take credit for everything, but I think that three of them really collaborated about what kind of villains and allies Batman should have had. And Bill, really being the writer, he had to come up with a lot of the people and the characters that Batman had to interact with. And so he came up with the Catwoman, he came up with Robin. The whole concept for Robin was, this was back in the 30s and the 40s, and people didn't have the inner dialogue that they have now, right? People talk to themselves all the time and were not considered crazy. Well, during that time, people weren't really supposed to have that inner dialogue. So he's like, well, he needs someone to talk to. Let's give him a
That's cool.
Was it also to do with? Sorry, was it also to do with? Because I've heard a rumor too about that when the Batman strip first came out, and that it was considered a bit too dark for young kids, and that. So
I heard that too.
With a child character.
And that also is one of the reasons why Batman no longer has a gun, was because they wanted to reduce the amount of violence being portrayed within the strip and things like that. So yeah, it had a lot to do with the demographic of who they were trying to get the stories to. Bill came up with a lot of them. Like I said, Catwoman, Penguin, Scarecrow. I mean, you throw a dart at a board that has the villains, and he probably came up with it. So, he had to write the stories, so he had to make them interesting. You can't fight the same person every week, every month, every whatever story. I mean,
the Joker can only escape from Arkham so many times.
That's right.
As far as outside the DC world, he co-created Green Lantern.
It's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So cool.
Alan Scott, guys, the original Green Lantern.
The original, yes, with the big cape and the red shirt, and he carried the lantern around. Yeah, that's the one that he wrote for, the original. He also came up with Wildcat, which is not very well known, but he's been in a few comics, and I know that some of the cartoons have brought him into some of the storylines and things like that. He also wrote the first Kryptonite story for Superman, which brought Superman.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great.
That's crazy.
Wow, that's mind. I didn't know that. He creates kryptonite. That's amazing.
Well, Bill was really big about the human element. I mean, that's one of the things that everybody loves about Batman, is that he's not an alien or a mutant or altered in some way. He's just a guy who saw injustice, who really wanted to fight crime and bring justice to his community. And so he kind of carried that theme with his characters. I mean, Alan Scott was just a regular guy, and he got this lantern and gave him powers, but without the lantern, he was just a guy. Same thing with Wildcat. He was a boxer. No special powers. He was just good at fighting and had a cool costume.
Well, going back to the characters he created in the Rogues Gallery, I feel like, to me, they are the greatest villains surrounding any hero ever created. And I feel like that's because, and I believe this was his intention, was that all of these characters are pieces of Batman's personality. And I feel like that's where he was going with all of that, because all of these characters are bits and pieces of Bruce Wayne. And I don't know, I just give him so much credit for the thought that he put into these characters. And that's why they've lasted, I think, so long.
Well, and they're also so relatable. He did a good job of, over the years, these villains, I mean, some of them are very relatable and very that human element that she was talking about. So it's very cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody's been affected in some way. It's how they deal with their trauma and, whether they're going to use it for good or bad. And that's, that was pretty much what was going on at the time. So, I mean, you got to think of 1939, 1940. We were in the middle of World War II. And there was a lot of evil in the world. And people either, were good or bad at that point. And I think he really played on that with the characters.
Absolutely.
Did Bill have anything more to do with the other JSA characters?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Did Bill have anything to do with any of the other JSA characters? So we know that he did Green Lantern and Wildcat.
I know that he wrote some of the World's Finest storylines.
Wow.
So, I mean, he was truly a starving artist. He tried to get the work wherever he could. He also wrote for Timely for a little while. I mean, he got work wherever he could get it. He wanted to write.
Did he also do some writing outside of comics, like screenplays or television?
He did. He wrote for all mediums. He wrote for radio, TV, and movies. He even wrote for the military with their informational videos.
Oh, that's
Again,
neat.
trying to get the work wherever he could. For TV, the most notable one is he wrote the Clock King 2-part episode for Batman TV series.
Now, if I'm correct, he actually got credit on that, correct?
He did.
Yeah.
I actually got to meet Charles, who was his best friend, before he passed away, and he was approached by my grandfather, and he asked if he could have some top billing on that because he had never seen his name attached to the Batman title before. That was the only time he got to see that. And so Charles understood that and let him have top bill, even though it's his William, but he recognized that Bill really needed to see that. So bless him.
That was actually one of the scenes in the doco that brought a tear to my eye when you actually saw that illustrated panel of him actually sitting there at the ABC. Was it NBC or ABC?
ABC,
but they let them watch on the big screen there.
Yeah,
and that brought a tear to the eye.
He also wrote movies. His best known one is The Green Slime, which is a sci-fi 60s. Totally campy, but awesome.
I remember that.
There's all kinds of uber facts about that one too. I actually did a presentation about for that film at an art show. I had to come up with all these interesting facts about it, so I had something to talk about.
There's a lot of fans of those type of movies. There's just
I love those movies.
Yeah,
I grew up watching those. They showed them on TV all the time when I was a kid.
Well, do you know that it was small Japanese children in those monster outfits?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
It was actually filmed in Japan with a Japanese director. And they released a completely different version of the movie in Japan because they took out the whole love interest and just kept it true sci-fi.
Oh.
Uber facts, what can I say?
Wow.
But it makes sense because they would do stuff like that to keep it the American audience, because it's like what they did with Godzilla, how they brought in Raymond Burr to play the part of the reporter, and the rest of the world just got a straight out Godzilla movie.
Us Americans really need to have that love aspect in our movies.
I think they try to bring in some sort of personal hook to keep them interested.
That's right.
Doesn't always work.
Well, we'll move on to the next question, and that is, I'll ask this one. Can you tell us how you finally got Warner Brothers and DC to agree to give Bill Finger the credit of co-creation of Batman. So what was that process like for you?
Well, we all agreed that it was time for it to happen. I mean, timing played a big role in it. By the time that in 2015, 2014, with the 75th anniversary, a lot of the people in the DC office, you know, they knew about Bill. They wanted to, you know, get him attached in some way. So, you know, in negotiations, we hashed it out and we were able to come to a conclusion. I mean, they had to be careful with their language and we had to be a little flexible on our side. And, you know, it just really came down to agreeing upon something, because we all were all wanting to, you know, see Bill get the recognition. But again, they have to be careful, you know, with their contracts and things like that. So, you know, it's just really coming down to the language. And,
Do you think that if you hadn't pursued it, if they would have ever made that choice on their own?
I don't think so.
Glad you did. Glad you did. That's awesome. Yeah. Question number 5 is Thor's.
Hello, Athena. This is something. What does it mean to you personally that now that your grandfather has finally got this recognition, like, you know, just to you, you know, as on a personal level?
I'm ecstatic. I mean, again, for 76 years, this man got no credit for this character that is
beloved.
Yes, he is beloved, but not just in America. I mean, he's worldwide. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, and you show the bat symbol, and everybody knows it's Batman.
Yeah.
And like, it's so much bigger than anybody expected it to be, and so to see that his name is now attached to it is just, you know, it's right. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it should have been from the beginning. But, you know, it took 76 years to get it there, and you know, it's you know, it brings closure to a lot of things for myself and my family. I mean, my son knew what his great-grandfather did, but people, you know, we questioned him if he said anything about it, but now he can, you know, say it proudly, and people, you know, wow, that's amazing. Like, there's no questioning about it anymore.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
All right. Question number 6, Jason.
Okay. I've got to sign this question, so please don't hate me. Do you feel Bob Kane was justified taking the full credit for as long as it seems, for so long? Because it seems this was a common practice in them days.
Well, from what I've been told by other comic historians, that unfortunately it was common practice that only one person did get credit, and that the Superman boys were a unique case where they both got the byline. But, you know, Kane could have corrected that at any time that he wanted to. He stated in his book that Bill really did majority of the creation, and, you know, had I gone back, you know, if I could go back, woulda, shoulda, coulda, he could have done it at any time he wanted to. He just didn't want to.
Yeah, and he wrote that official letter stating that it wasn't true what Bill was saying and everything, you know, like he did a lot of crap things.
He did, but again, you know, he was about himself. He was a narcissist. Unfortunately, they don't like to share the spotlight, and that's basically what it comes down to, is that he had a personality flaw. I don't like to talk badly about people, but that's the reality of the situation.
We've all worked with people like that, Athena.
Well, I think
related to somebody.
Absolutely. And I think the main thing is that, you know, for those of us that have watched the documentary, and most of us have, is that, you know, we grew up thinking Bob Kane was, you know, the creator of Batman. You know, he's Bob Kane. But you quickly realize after watching the documentary and, you know, looking up other factual information that he was just not a good person.
No.
And
It was very
No,
disappointing.
But he did.
Never really heard
And just
anything good about Bob Kane, unfortunately. A lot of the stories that I have heard are not so great. Unfortunately, that's the way he decided to play it for himself. So he's the one that created this bad reputation.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, at any time he could have like just said, yeah, I wasn't the only person, but I put this contract in there that made my name on there. But yes, Bill did do all this sort of stuff. And I mean, like when he, and that sort of like raised another question in that doco when you hear him, his actual words that Bill created 50 to 75% of the content in the original issues. And you're like, well, hang on, man, you're a known liar. It's probably more like 75 to 80 or 90.
Yeah.
Well, the way that I have been explained on how it started is really Bill came up with all of it except for the name. I mean, I don't know if you know what the original Batman concept looked like, but it's nothing like what we have now.
No. And then even when he does that, he did them fake drawings of, from when he was a child and that, and you're like, come on, man.
That was also common practice. They would swipe artwork from each other. Because they had to crank these out pretty quickly, so there was a lot of tracing, and I mean that was common practice. I mean, but still, I mean, he couldn't really come up with anything original himself. He had to tap into other people's talent.
Well, it wasn't that audio recording of him saying the 75%. Was that your kind of your main thing that you had to say, hey, he even admits it here on this recording?
It did help that he admitted that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it sounded like in the tape that he admitted it begrudgingly just because the writer was saying, no, I'm fact-checking everything. I've heard some things and we need to get this right.
Well, when he wrote his book, the writer that was working with him, Tom Andrea, kind of pushed him to tell the truth within the book, not this lie that he had been feeding people for 50 plus years. So, he had to be pushed to tell the truth. And, unfortunately, he wanted to hold on to the lie more than he wanted to really tell the true story.
I've got to say, though, like after watching the doco and listening to you now telling us these stories, I've actually put your grandfather right up there with Jack Kirby.
Well, it was very similar what happened to both of them. I mean, unfortunately, Stan Lee and Bob Kane were best friends, if that tells you anything.
That says a lot to me because I actually really don't like Stan Lee for what he did to a number of artists, and it seems that that him and Bob just pretty much did the same thing.
They did, and they were close friends. I mean,
coffee breaks together.
Yeah.
Whose idea can we steal today? Yeah.
That's why I'm glad you're bringing light to it, because I think a lot of people, they just see this figurehead and they think, oh, they're so wonderful, but there's a lot that we don't know. There's a lot. I've been watching the chat, and I know people this week when I've been telling people that you were going to be on, like I've had so many comments that they say, I wonder how many other artists didn't get the credit, that they deserve. And there has to be, hundreds and hundreds of amazing artists out there. So it's amazing. Let's see. Question 7 is Jeremy.
Yeah. Hi, Athena.
Hi.
I'm just kind of wondering what your relationship is now with like DC and Warner Brothers. If it's better, worse, kind of the same as it was shown in the documentary.
It's pretty much the same. I mean, we speak to each other when necessary. They still invite me out to premieres and things like that. It is what it is. They're busy, making movies and selling books and toys and statues and everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, we don't have a problem per se.
Okay, cool. What was the last, premiere you went to then?
The last premiere that I went to was the Teen Titans movie, actually.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
that
cool.
was
They invite you basically to the mall, which is really good too.
I'm sorry?
They invite you to the mall basically by the sound of it, so that's fantastic.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I get to, play celebrity for 5 minutes.
You are a celebrity.
That's right. You are in our world, that's for sure.
Aw, thank you.
Absolutely. Question 8 is Rodney.
Hi, Athena. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the movie that gets this story out. So as I'm watching the movie, I'm getting a little mad towards the end, and the skeptic in me is thinking, okay, they're just going to throw you this bone by putting his name in Batman vs Superman and leave it at that. So just for clarification, does Bill get credit in every Batman property from here on, or so no exceptions?
No exception.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
I've noticed
That's a round of applause right
Yeah.
there.
back and added his name to certain things. I believe the box set for the animated series and various other things, they've gone back. You know, a lot of the compilation books, if you look at like the Chronicles or the archives, it lists, you know, who was involved with the storyline, and Bill gets a lot of credit there for writing credit. It's just now he gets that full co-creator.
Yeah,
with Bob
That's
Kane.
awesome. That's great. Awesome.
So
Thank
great.
you.
Wonderful. ATM, question 9.
So, Athena, do you have a favorite Batman story?
Oh.
It could be not comic book related. Anything that sticks out to you that you're like, man, I really love this story.
I don't read comics enough to be able to answer that.
Well, what about like a live action version of Batman? Like, who's your favorite Caped Crusader?
Well, my preference was the Michael Keaton Batman. I really, really loved the animated series in the 90s for a bunch of different reasons. You know, I think that series really got to the heart of the character, you know, so the way that they animated it, I was in art school at the time when that series came out, so the way that they actually did that cartoon and produced it was unlike anything else that they had done previously. So, you know, it really fascinated me, and the storylines were awesome. So the one right after that with Batman Beyond, I really enjoyed that. I was like really fascinated with like how they, you know, created this whole other Batman and how the technology changed and how they tied it into Bruce Wayne, and it just what they've done with it is quite fascinating, and I was blown away by it. I'd love to see a live action Batman Beyond. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, would be.
Yeah.
What was it like, Conroy? I know you had a street unveiling, you know, when they gave Bill his street. Like, was that awesome to be able to talk to him and hang out with him?
With Kevin Conroy?
Kevin Conroy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun. I that was actually the second time I got to meet Kevin. I met him back in 2014. And you know, he's another great one. He's not you know, visually, but he is the voice. You know, we always think that's the voice of Batman. So
just close your eyes
and
talk to him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he pulls off both, and that's the hard part, is being able to pull off not just the Batman, but also Bruce Wayne, and really the difference between the two characters within the same person.
I had the
was able to pull it off really well.
I had the opportunity to meet him last year, and nicest guy in the world. But I think a lot of times when people when you ask people who their favorite Batman is, a lot of people do say Kevin Conroy. He has been the voice for so long, and I'm a giant fan of the animated series like you are, and you know, he has been my Batman forever. Next to Michael Keaton, obviously too, but. I'm really glad you had a chance to hang out with him a little bit. That's awesome. That's cool. Let's see. How about Mac? I think it's yours.
All right, Athena. Do you have any of Bill's old drawing or sketches? And if you do you have plans on showing them off?
Bill actually wasn't an artist.
Okay.
I do have his very last script that he handed in the day before he passed away.
Wow.
That story, he was writing these weird stories. This particular script was about marionettes that were real, and they were like Dracula and a Wolfman and things like that. The story behind that is when I first went to go meet Paul Levitz back in 2008, he said, "I have a gift for you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Here, this is the very last thing your grandfather submitted, and it's the only thing that we have left."
Wow.
And so he was very gracious and gave that to me as a gift. And then when I met Charles, his best friend, he gave me this little statue. And I'm like, what is this? And he goes, "It's the only piece of art that Bill ever created." Again, he wasn't an artist.
Okay.
He took this class at the Y, and it was a little sculpture, and it's of a woman, and it's based off of my grandmother, and so I have that in my collection.
Oh wow,
that's really cool.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Let's see. I personally, I have an art background. I'm also a teacher. And so I know that you have an art background as well, and it's something you've been passionate about in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about the kind of art you do, what kind of medium you like to use, and things like that?
Sure. When I was younger, I was really into drawing and painting and photography. And then I kind of fell out of that for a little while when I went back to college and got my degree in mathematics. I know it has nothing to do with math.
It's usually the way it works.
But in the last couple of years, I've actually gotten back into painting and doing some photography. I was working for a production company in South Florida for a little while, doing all of their behind-the-scenes photos and stuff. And then I've been doing actually renditions of some of the Golden Age stuff. I've had a few commission jobs where people want me to redo some of the covers of the old Batman. I've done a couple Star Wars pieces.
There you go.
It's always in there somewhere, Jack.
But you know, I also do my own stuff. I've done some self-portraits. I do landscapes. I've done some watercolors. I mainly work with acrylics right now. I was into jewelry making for a little while when I wasn't doing painting or photography. I've always been a little creative somewhere just to keep those juices flowing.
That's cool. And I know you did some, or at least have done some conventions in the past where you've had some of your art on display. Do you still do that? Do you still like to travel and have some of your art on display?
I do. I have a couple of events this year that's coming up in April. I'll be in Miami at UltraCon in April. And then in May.
Oh, no.
There we go. I think we froze.
Might have to reconnect.
Yeah.
Well, we had some.
There you go.
Oh, right.
Sorry, we lost you there for just a second.
Yeah, we missed the second place.
You were saying, you were telling us where you were going to be at the conventions.
Okay, so in April, I'll be in Miami for UltraCon. In May, I'll be in Orlando for MegaCon. I go out to San Diego, but I don't have a table there. I go there to present the Bill Finger Award. And at the end of August, no, I think it's the end of August, beginning of September, is Dragon Con.
Awesome. It's really cool events here. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
I'm hoping some more pop up, but
New York Comic Con
for as of right now.
Yeah, New York.
I know a lot of people would love you to come down to New York Comic Con. I know there's a lot of us that
I'm working on that
go.
one. They're kind of picky about who they have. I've been to that one a couple of times, but I'm hoping this year I'll be able to be a guest again. I've done panels back in 2014. I actually did this really cool one with a bunch of the granddaughters of the Golden Age, so that was fun. For the Hulu, we did a panel before the documentary came out to kind of do a sneak peek and talk about it and all that. So it's a good con. I like it.
That's awesome. That sounds really cool. That's cool. Jason, you have question 12.
Okay, how has your life changed since your grandfather has been given the recognition he so rightfully deserved?
Well, the way I used to describe it to my students is that I have two lives now. I was teaching mathematics at a small college in South Florida. So it was like my regular life. And I'm a mom, I have like normal stuff that I do. And then I would travel all the time for conventions. So I had my very public life also. So it's been a interesting contrast between being a teacher and then having this very public life where people kind of freak out when they see me sometimes. I
That's
haven't
great.
gotten used to that, but I guess I never will.
And I just want to follow up with another question too, Athena. I mean, we all know, anyone who's watched the doco, we know this wasn't about money. This was about to get your grandfather's recognition for the hard work and what he actually created that has resonated throughout the ages of comic book history. Have they at least made some finance? Like that? Well, I'm going to use Bob Kane's words here. Is a slice of the pie now being assigned to you, and to make sure that things are being put right?
I can't really talk about the financial.
Fair enough.
I still have a day job. For a little easier. Does that answer it?
Well, I mean, I think isn't the most important part the history, right? We can't take the money with us. We can't take any of that with us, but the recognition
is forever.
Right.
That was
For
kind
sure.
of the point,
Amen.
is making sure that the history was corrected so that every generation knows the true creators of this character that's gonna probably live on for another 75 years.
He's not going anywhere, I'll tell you that.
Amen.
Yeah.
He's like the Greek mythology. He'll be around for thousands and thousands of years.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I think that's the best summation that I've heard of it, actually, that, some of these characters, thousands of years down the track, they'll be like, did they really exist, or were they just in stories?
Right. We wonder that about Greek mythology and other religions and things like that. So, I mean, it's right there. It's just
actually, I know you don't read too many of the comic books, but there was one. There is a gentleman that actually travels through time, and in one of them, he actually goes far distant into the future, and he actually survives by the people that live there, these brutal savages that live in the future, by recounting stories of Batman.
Oh, really?
He holds them at bay with stories of Batman to allow him the time to repair his time ship and get out of there.
Oh, wow.
It's cool.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Well, we're out of the questions that we had planned. Does anybody have any questions in the gallery?
Yeah, we've got go ahead, Rodney. Go ahead, Rodney.
Well, I just wanted to ask one thing before you did that. You mentioned the Bill Finger Award. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. The Bill Finger Award was created by Jerry Robinson. He felt that Bill's name needed to be honored in some way, so he created the Bill Finger Award. And it's given to two recipients at the Eisner Awards every year, one living and one deceased. And it's for people who have contributed to writing in the comic industry.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's great.
That's super cool.
Good on Jeremy.
Yep. It's really great.
I actually have one more question too. How do you feel that, because of the hard work that you guys have put in, Mark as well with his documentary and his back research, and the struggle that you've gone through to get recognition for your grandfather, that it may open up the way for a lot of other artists that were wronged in that way in the past to be able to maybe get the recognition that they deserve as well?
Oh, I'm hoping that not just Bill Finger's story, but also Jack Kirby and other artists got in their recognition and corrected the true history of their creations, has helped pave the way for other artists who either had their creations stolen or not credited to them, or future creators feel that they can learn from these stories and make sure that their creations are protected. I know that being an artist is not always, going to guarantee that you're contract savvy or legal savvy, but, knowing that people will steal, will make them want to protect themselves and their creations a little more.
Actually, some of that you've seen that with the modern writers and artists of today. That they really are. I mean, like they've become rock stars pretty much.
It's true, and unfortunately, it's still happening in the industry where people's ideas or creations are being taken and they're not being recognized for their contributions. So, I think a lot of people, not just in the comic world, but in a lot of different industries, can learn from these stories.
Absolutely. Any other questions from the gallery tonight?
I had one. I thought it was. I thought we always ask about your grandfather and his legacy and some of the other things that the documentary touches on. I don't think I've ever heard. What does Batman mean to you?
Wow.
The deep questions.
That's right.
Well, I mean, obviously he stands for justice and bringing, right to the wrong. And, to me, I think that the longevity of the character really speaks volumes. I've had many people from around the world tell me that, Batman is how they coped with trauma. And in a way, Batman has helped me deal with trauma. Unfortunately, my trauma was Batman, so I had to overcome that. So, it's been a time of celebration recently where, there was a long period of time where I couldn't stand, like I hated it, seeing Batman on t-shirts and notebooks. I worked at a college. Think of how many people carry Batman stuff on a college
Constant
campus.
reminder. Yep.
And then you go to tell people, and they just go, "Oh, I don't believe you because I know that it's Bob Kane," and you're like, "You idiot."
Well, I had that, as a child. So that's, again, played into the role of why I didn't really talk about it for 15 years was, you just get tired of being called a liar. So, I mean, I've had the full spectrum with the Batman character where, I liked him and I enjoyed certain parts of him and I enjoyed, the animation, and I enjoyed the movies, and, I read a few stories as a kid, but then, shying away from it because I didn't want to be called a liar or I wasn't able to resolve the issue. And like I said, full spectrum, but it's come to a closure, like I mentioned earlier, where I don't have to see the logo as a negative thing anymore. I can actually say, yes, we can celebrate this.
And what a great legacy to pass on to your son.
Yeah, if he was into comics other than The Walking Dead.
What does he think of all of this? Does he understand the gravity of it all?
He does. When he was in elementary school, he had a similar situation that I did. People questioned him. No, your great-grandfather didn't do that. Look, it says Bob Kane, blah, 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 blah.
It is a wild thing for a child to say.
Yeah.
Like, hey, my great-granddad made
validation.
Batman. Like,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
right.
Yeah. Well, as soon as Mark's book came out, he was still in elementary school when it came out. So, when it came out and he got his copy, he was like, "Look, it's right there. There's my mom. There's my
That's
dog.
awesome.
That's awesome. That's incredible."
So he got to see the flip side of it. Having the negative side of it, he got to be, this is really part of my family heritage. Like, look, there's proof right here. And that's something
you're essentially the Wayne.
When I was a kid. I mean, we didn't have the internet when I was in the 3rd grade. So he had this other, way of, getting the information to people who are around him and say, listen, this is really part of my family. And then once we started going to the conventions and stuff, I mean, he definitely walked around like he was a rock star.
Yeah.
Me.
has that sparked any creativity in him to like start thinking about things like from an artist point of view?
Well, my son's a musician. He gets that from his father's side. He's not so much into the, art side, drawing
or writing.
I mean, he does a little writing, but it's mainly for songs.
Okay.
Going back to your art, has Warner Brothers or DC, have they ever said, "Hey, let's do something together. Let's use some of your art"?
No.
That'd be awesome, man.
They really should.
In that.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you listened to the Batman on Batman when I did the episode with Kevin Smith, and I presented him with a painting that I did. I actually did one of the covers of Daredevil that he wrote.
That's awesome.
And he was like blown away by it. He's like, "Oh my God, we should totally work on something together." But of course, that fizzled out, unfortunately. So I don't know. I don't know why they don't tap into it. They might be. I'm sure they have their reasons. I'm not even going to speculate why.
Well, I was going to say, with the millions of variant covers that they do now, I'm sure they can spare one for you.
Well, and I also haven't approached them. I'm sure that if I did approach them, they might be more.
I guarantee they would.
That'd be an awesome idea. That'd be an awesome
I think it is a
idea.
great idea too. I think people would love it. I mean,
and we suggested it here first, people.
Yeah. Fans be like, "Why aren't you doing Batman stories? And why aren't you doing this and that?" And I'm like, I have no control over that. I'm not in the industry. I'm just a math professor.
Well, you got the Batman statue collector platform for some really hardcore Batman fans. You could use that.
Awesome.
That would be great.
Start a petition.
Yes, petition up and share it amongst all our friends and that as well. Bang. 10,000 signatures like that.
Yes. Which actually brings me to another thing I wanted to bring up. So I am actually doing an application to get Bill a star on the Hollywood Boulevard.
Nice.
Now, unfortunately, it's a lot of money to get those stars to be put on. So I'm going to, if it's approved, I would like to do a Kickstarter. Well, it's not a Kickstarter, a GoFundMe to get the fans involved in getting him his star that he is long overdue.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to do some kind of incentive thing. Whoever donates the most will probably get something from me. And,
awesome.
I'll have different tiers and things like that. So once I have more information, I'll definitely start posting that up on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to post it in my group, and I'll do anything I can to help promote it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it gets approved. It's going in the mail tomorrow.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
That's exciting.
I know the fans want a part of this, and they really want to be included. So I think that's a great way to get everyone involved and, let them, feel like they've contributed to somebody who's had a huge influence in their life.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're going to get a lot of support.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, your grandfather had a lot of influence on a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, even other characters, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been contacted by many, many people to share their Batman stories, good, bad, healing. It's blown me away over the years on really how Batman and what Bill created has helped people and entertained them.
All right. So I have a question.
Go ahead.
So who would you like to see play as Batman now that Affleck's out?
It's a good question.
I don't know. There's so many good actors out there.
Yeah, they're wanting somebody young.
Yeah, I don't know.
What did you think of Ben Affleck as Batman?
I think he did a good job as an older Batman, Bruce Wayne. I know a lot of people give him shit, but I think he did a good job.
Yeah, I did too.
I mean,
yeah,
he's a great actor.
Good as the Miller Batman.
Kudos. He is an Oscar winner. mean,
multiple, right?
Yeah,
he won 2 Oscars.
He does a good job. it's not always the actor's fault. It's who's behind him and writing the scripts and directing these movies and things like that. And I think a lot of people forget that, and they just like to tear down the person that they're looking at on the screen, which is not really fair.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get you in trouble, Athena, but I'm just going to say it. It's the Warner Brothers executives that get their hands involved that have no idea about the source material.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also picking the correct directors. I mean, they were spot on with the Tim Burton, Batman and Batman Returns to really bring the character back to his original dark roots and really have an understanding for the character. And I think that if Tim Burton didn't do that with those two films, we wouldn't really have the Christopher Nolan series that we just had and having Batman really be this dark character that he's supposed to be.
I agree 100%.
I'm glad she brought that up because when I was a little kid, like 8 years old, I used to watch the Adam West show, the bang, zow, pound. Hold on. When I was 11 and read The Dark Knight Returns, I sat up straight in my chair. I was like, "What in God's name?"
That thing was life changing.
That I would say that was like my gateway to like what the real world really is. I was like, "Holy moly!" You know what I mean? So
think of what was going on in the 60s. I mean, it was very bright and
colorful.
And they had shows like Laugh-In. I mean, it was supposed to be campy and funny and all of that silliness of that era. I mean,
those shows designed to sell toys to kids. Yeah,
but I mean, I always love that. That show. But I mean, but when I read, it was like a shock to the system. Especially for an 11-year-old kid. Like, what in the world is he's fighting Superman, for God's sake.
You mentioned Batman Beyond earlier. What would you think of a Tim Burton Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton as an older Batman?
Oh my God! Just saying,
be amazing, right?
It would.
And fans would eat that up. Like
you're pouring honey in our ears, Chris.
Yep.
Well, you know that Michael Keaton likes to be birds, so I mean, he's been 3 of them now.
I know. Yeah. Yep, that's right.
Can I ask do you have a favorite villain in the Batman universe?
Good question.
Okay, so I don't consider her really a villain because she definitely walks both sides. My favorite is Catwoman. She really does, she does for herself. She's a survivor. Yeah. She plays both sides whenever possible to protect herself. I know she's supposed to be a villain, but at the same time, she tries to do good.
Definitely.
There's that whole romantic, conflict with the bat,
Yeah, Chris is showing his
everybody going to get their Catwoman's, man.
My Sideshow Collectibles.
Oh, nice.
Catwoman
That's
there.
actually not the Catwoman I like. I like the Michelle Pfeiffer one. She was hot.
Oh, yes.
I have her.
Nice.
I'm actually going to have a cat suit made so I can cosplay it. I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that in San Diego.
That's cool.
Very cool.
She was fantastic. She's my favorite Catwoman by far.
She was so sexy.
It's actually my wife's favorite piece.
Oh, really?
Everybody pulling up the Catwoman statues.
Get your Catwomans out.
Nice.
Good.
I just have Two-Face. I don't have a Catwoman.
Don't feel mad. Nobody.
I always like the one in the purple. Y'all know that old one?
The premium.
Yeah, I always love that one.
Actually, I did a Golden Age cover. It's the one where she's swiping at Robin.
Ooh.
And she's wearing the purple dress. And I think it's like the first appearance of her or something. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Do you have anywhere where you have your art posted, like the people could see the pieces you've made?
You can find me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Instagram is a little easier to navigate with the paintings if you want to find paintings. Some of my photography is up there also. But I mean,
what are the handles, Athena?
Anywhere you want.
What are the handles?
Platforms.
What are the handles?
I've been in the process of moving, so I haven't posted anything new lately. I'm hoping that once everything gets a little more settled and I get my studio set back up, I'll be able to put up some more pieces.
Awesome. What are your handles where they could find you?
I'm on Facebook. You can just put my name in. I have 2 different pages. I have my public page and then I have my private page. Either one is fine. On Instagram, you can just put my name in and you'll find me there.
Just follow you.
Same thing with Twitter. Twitter is a little hit or miss for me. I usually use Instagram or Facebook, but I do go on Twitter and I try to interact with the fans there as much as possible. So,
Athena, I just wanted to ask you a further question too about the creations. Was the original Batwoman also one of your grandfather's creations?
I believe so.
Yeah, because she was originally a socialite that just dressed up as a bat to try and attract Batman, but then now she's developed into something far greater.
I believe so. Don't quote me on that, but I think so.
It was around that time. It was in the first 50 issues or something that she came in.
Many. It's hard for me to keep them all straight.
Yeah.
So
we already blew my mind with Alan Scott and Green Lantern.
We were just talking about Alan Scott earlier in the week too.
Oh, really?
Because somebody had just done a 3D render of Alan Scott, and we were all like, "Who's this?" Well, some of us were, not everybody.
Yeah, I had to educate some people.
I already knew who he was.
Yeah. Jason had to educate me. I'm fine. Athena, can I ask if there was ever any? I know that you said your grandfather wasn't an artist, like a drawing artist, but were there ever any old sketches that got left on the cutting room floor that you saw of like an original design of Batman or different variations? Or was this always like the look of Batman? That's wild to me.
I mean, pretty much what we see now is, with the logo across the chest and the cowl and the gondolets and the utility belt.
Wow.
That's pretty much all Bill right there. I mean, if you saw the documentary, you saw the original concept of what Bob Kane came up with the red unitard and the little.
Jeez, he was so frightening, wasn't he?
And the big stiff wig. Didn't really look like a bat and didn't really look all that scary. So, Bill, understood how to play with words and how to make it very visual. That was his talent. So he said, if you're going to use the name Batman, you got to make him look like a bat. And bats are scary, so you want him to scare people when he's trying to fight them. So
and he's the one that put the towel on.
The color scheme has changed, and he's gotten, beefier, and he's gotten thinner, and he's, but I mean, pretty much the look is what Bill wanted the character to look like.
Yeah, well, when you think of Batman, you think of the cow every time.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
Come on, Bat Dad.
Yeah, Bat Dad's hilarious.
We are just about out of time. I don't want to keep you too long. Maybe one more question. Did we have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
Did you have any interaction with the Kane family when your grandfather got the credit, or have you spoken to anybody from the Kane family?
No.
Okay.
The only time I was around anybody from the Kane family was in 2008 for the Dark Knight movie premiere. Mrs. Kane was at that premiere. But she, when she found out that we were there, she kind of just kept to herself.
Do you think that was Shane?
I have not had any interaction with the Kane family or any of the relatives. I was really kind of surprised in 2014 for the 75th anniversary that nobody from the Kane family was there to help celebrate the character or anything. They've been very quiet.
Wow,
that's great.
Well, I mean,
the year that I came out in the 2014 was, when I went to my first convention, and that's when San Diego had me out as a guest to do the anniversary and things like that. And I guess they didn't feel the need to participate.
No, it sounded like they did it in protest, so they're still carrying a grudge.
Could it be a grudge or could it be shame?
I was going to say, it could be embarrassment, on there.
I don't know. I know that Mrs. Kane is not in good health. They didn't have any children, so there isn't really anyone left. I mean, I
Oh,
think
wow.
he has a niece somewhere, but nobody has been participating. So, and I haven't heard anything as far as them, publicly, fighting the credit or anything like that. So,
Well, that's a bonus.
yeah, I mean, it obviously makes a smoother transition, but it's also a little surprising.
Well, I want to thank you all in the gallery for being in here. I want to thank everybody in the live chat as well. And Athena, I can't thank you enough for coming on our little show here. It is just beyond exciting for me, again, as a lifelong Batman fan and somebody that spends so much time in the Batman universe, to have watched the documentary and to talk to you tonight and to be able to know that from here on out, again, whenever I started the show, I said, to me, Bill Finger is the creator of Batman, and I still stick by that. I feel like he is the one responsible for creating the world that I love and so many people out there love in this panel and throughout the world. And again, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on the show. I'm just so happy for you and your family, and I can't wait to see what happens with Batman in the future. I'm just really happy for you guys.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Nice meeting you.
Well, that wraps up Rogues Gallery for this week. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it so much, and we'll be back with the next show probably in a couple weeks. Again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I'll see you in the Batcave.